Hey, Ashley, we're back for 2 weeks in a row.
Hey, Mike, how's it going?
This is encouraging.
I am very proud of us. It's going to be a good summer, full of podcasting.
Full of food tech news wrap-ups, and this is the second one we're doing in kind of the relaunched weekly news show. And the first story I want to talk about is Taco Bell's new restaurant concept. This is a concept that I believe they launched in, I think, Ohio, or is it in California? I'm not sure. It's one of those locations. And this is Minnesota. Minnesota.
There you go.
Somewhere randomly.
Somewhere
across
near
the country.
Ohio
Let's just
Minnesota.
say it's in the U.S. It's in the U.S. Minnesota's in Ohio, right?
We're very sorry to our Midwest listeners. we do. It's terrible.
And this new restaurant concept from Taco Bell is called Defy. And I don't know. I just pictured like marketing executives sitting around a table saying, what's a cool name for a Taco Bell new concept restaurant? And someone shouted Defy.
Yeah.
Everyone said, yes, that's it. And the way the Defy concept works is basically it's a 2-story restaurant, and it's really pretty interesting in that it maximizes drive-through capacity. It's essentially the restaurant's on top, where the kitchen is and the employees are, and below it on the second level is 4 drive-through lanes. And a lot of the articles that wrote about this thing is basically said, hey, it's this really crazy concept that uses food lifts. And I immediately thought of dumbwaiters. Like, I've always been fascinated with dumbwaiters. I've been in houses with dumbwaiters. I just wanted to watch how they work.
I learned this about you reading this article. I did not.
Yeah.
I've known you for a long time, and I didn't know you were so fascinated with them. But
yeah, like it's like one of those antiquated things, like cobblers that just don't happen aren't in American life anymore.
They make me think of haunted mansions for some reason. I don't know why. I feel like there's movies where like the dumbwaiter is used for like, like horror movie-esque things. Or
maybe a better analog is like it's kind of like the automat. Like we don't really see automats anymore, but like the automat, this is essentially a fresh new take because we've seen the automat make a comeback with like Itza, another pickup kiosk, but this is essentially Taco Bell saying, hey, we are going to do a 2-story restaurant. We're going to maximize drive-through lane space, and we're going to deliver the food to everyone in their individual lanes with a little food elevator or dumbwaiter. And it makes a lot of sense in this sense. If you think about the way drive-throughs are architected, I've been in a few drive-throughs that has like 2 or 3 order lanes, like a little kind of screen. You pick off the menu, you talk through an intercom, you order your Taco Bell food or your Big Mac, and then it's like a zipper. You then kind of join into one single file line, and there's still this choke point of the pickup window. And I'd never really seen anyone figure this out, But like with a bank, if you've been like a multi-line bank, they actually can send little pickup pods for different chutes, I think, that go underneath the cars. Yeah. This is like a different concept. It's essentially everything's overhead, and it drops food down a little elevator to you.
Yeah, I mean, it actually, a lot of banks do, that goes up and over some type of like overhang, like where you drive under it or whatever. So it's not necessarily going like above, but the bank isn't above you, but it's going to. That's exactly what I thought of. We have a video posted on our story on the spoon.tech, like where it shows from the point of view of whatever food is being placed in the
someone dropped a camera in the pickup chute, so it went up the elevator, the high-tech dumbwaiter into like the second story. You could see the restaurant. And you saw the person dropping the food in there.
Yeah. It was cool. But it was like, oh, this is just like the bank where you stick your checks in and the little tube and it would shoot up. And I mean, it's the thing that I think is like, when I read this, the first thing that came to my mind was like, why haven't they done this kind of design yet? Because if you think about, so the technology, I'm sure there's automation and stuff that hasn't necessarily always existed, but the technology to, go up and down via this sort of vacuum chute elevator model obviously has existed. And the real estate, like what do you do in like dorm bedrooms when you need more real estate? Like you loft the bed, right? You like put stuff underneath it. And this is like exactly what they're doing here. And it makes so much sense because, to your point, drive-throughs more and more people want contactless or not to get out of their vehicle or to have it be as simple as possible to go grab fast food or any food. This is like absolutely optimizing that and then just making it so that like there's no more little lanes. It's the whole underneath part of the restaurant can be used as for real estate for parking and waiting and all of that stuff. So I don't know. It made me be like, why hasn't anyone done that? Like this seems, like it's just this have already been going on.
I told my wife about it, Tiff, and she's like, well, does Taco Bell really have that much business where they need drive-through lanes? But I've been, if you're ever in like a small town at lunch, you see the long lines for drive-thrus at fast food restaurants.
Next time I have a chance, I will go to there's a Taco Bell, a KFC that share a building in my town, and then across the street there's a McDonald's and a Burger King, and behind it a Panera. And those are the only chains that we have in our town. And it is lunchtime. There's no way to get through that area without being stuck in traffic for a really long time because the drive-through lanes they're like small parking lots and they just spill out onto the streets. I'm gonna take a video next time and send it to you and Tiff, and you could show her like, yes, Taco Bell is very busy in small town America, and this makes if they had this, they would be able to have all of that traffic just sort of snaking underneath the building.
I mean, and sometimes I don't go to fast food much anymore, but I've been in situations where you just need to get something to eat quick.
Yeah.
And you're going to go in the shortest line. You're not going to jump in the drive-thru line that you have to wait. There's 10 cars deep. If there's one that's shorter, I'll eat at McDonald's versus Taco Bell or vice versa.
Exactly.
Just because you need to grab something quick. I would imagine this would allow them just to increase the amount of business they get because the lines are just shorter and it's just going to be quicker. One of the things that they also are allowing is the Uber Eats driver or the DoorDash driver to jump in these lines. And they're also basically trying to encourage you gently or maybe more forcefully to actually use their app because 3 of the lines are reserved for app users of the Taco Bell app. So you buy your food on the app and then you just go and you do a QR code scan, your food drops down the elevator. If you're old school and refuse to get into the modern world, there's one lane reserved for someone who actually just wants to order the food talking to a person.
Yes, but it's like at the tolls when they have like the fast pass or the quick lanes or whatever they call them, and then there's always like one lane reserved for people who just haven't gotten that thing in their car yet and they're still wanting to pay with change or having to pay with change. The thing that is interesting about like relying on mobile app ordering and like scanning is it shows it's. A lot of apps are doing this. Like McDonald's has an app. You can order ahead with a lot of groups now, but a lot of restaurants now. But the experience of picking it up once you get there isn't always super convenient and great. Like our McDonald's got renovated several years ago over here, and it's very pretty and it's very modern looking, and the drive-thru experience is very modern or whatever. But you still, even when you if you're picking up food and not just doing your ordering right there when you drive up, you have to go through the drive-thru and like do your scanning thing, and then you have to like pull off to the side. And sometimes someone comes out quickly because they're notified that a pickup order is there. But if it's busy, sometimes you end up sitting there waiting for a little bit. And one time I even had to like get out of the car and go like, so it's not really so yes, mobile ordering is great, but the experience getting there, there's been times where I'm just like, there's not even any, like, let's just go to the restaurant and just order through the drive-thru. What's the point of using the app? So in this case, you can see how it would be a lot quicker because you're adding a lot of automation. So you can see how like meal is ready and prepped and put on in a queue to get sent down. And then it's literally just waiting for the signal of, oh, the car just is here right at chute 3, and then thing goes down, and a human really doesn't have to do much to deliver that mobile app order, right? So it does seem like until restaurants can deliver some automation on the other end of mobile ordering, the convenience isn't always executed as well as it could be. So
yeah, I agree. So the plan is for them to possibly even retrofit existing Taco Bells, and they're also talking about rolling this out with some new builds over time. So hopefully this will arrive in your town and the traffic will clear up on Main Street.
I mean, we'll have, it'll be like when I retire, we'll get these things in our town. Our town takes like, I don't know if anybody out there is a Parks and Rec fan, but there's the town that Parks and Rec is set in, Pawnee, Indiana, is like, they're always making fun of it as being, really out of the loop and stuff. And like, at one point, one of the characters is like, talking about like, we just got this, and this, and like stuff that came out 20 years ago. And, the character's like, I don't have, they're really big fans of like emo or whatever. He's like, I don't have the heart to tell them that Kurt Cobain died in 19 whatever. Like, of like, this is our town. Like, people are just, even with the internet, we're just slugging by.
A little bit stuck in time. A little bit stuck in time.
Yep.
Well, I don't know what the kitchens are like in your little tiny town, but maybe at some point you'll get a new kitchen called Grow. So the next story is about Electrolux launching this new kitchen concept called Grow. And on the promo video, it was a Swedish person announcing it within a very Swedish accent, Grow or something. I'm not going to try. I kind of tried it there. I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, no.
Grow? They debuted this at Euro Cucina, which is a big kitchen and furniture show in Europe. And, it's not often you see something from a big appliance manufacturer that you go, oh, wow, this is really cool. I mean, It's just their nature to be fairly conservative. And so oftentimes changes are iterative and conservative because of the culture. But I have to say, the Grow system is pretty darn cool. It's essentially, to describe it, it's a rethink of the way your kitchen would be designed. It's a modular system that features all these different little modules, like a fermentation chamber or a smoker, a place for your vegetables that puts them on display. And the goal behind Grow is really to encourage people to eat more sustainably and to eat a more plant-based diet. And so like it's kind of like very aspirational in what they're trying to achieve, but it actually functionally and also like design-wise, aesthetically, it's pretty darn cool looking. And did you see the promo video?
I did, yeah. I was at first I had a similar reaction, like, wow, this is very different and surprising from a big appliance manufacturer. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that Electrolux is really smart here, because we talk a lot about how kitchen design has started to evolve at a more rapid pace since technology started, changing the way we're cooking and storing food and things in our kitchen. But it's still pretty, like you said, it's the change is still pretty incremental. We all generally have our, kind of kitchens with the sort of box layout, or, meaning you've got the refrigerator, you've got a dishwasher, you've got a stove, oven, whatever. Like, those things haven't really changed. Even when you go to build a new house, like, the layouts are, what you're going to get in a kitchen, right, of today. What's going to be in there. But in this instance, when you look at the Grow system and the layout, I mean, the kitchen is completely reinvented, and it is basically like the appliances of the future are going to be completely different, and the design has to reflect that. So as an appliance manufacturer, they're sitting there like, let's map out what that looks like. Like, let's create our own vision for what our products will look like in the future, and how what kitchens around them could look like. And it's very clear that vision of sustainable eating, really being, I think, we've had folks come and talk about kitchen design at our events before. And we have talked about the fact that, like, to get people to eat better, to eat healthier, to use the food they have, to eat fresher foods, like, you have to make it more visible and accessible to them. And there's been fridge attempts to do that a little bit in the past. Like, remember the fridge? I think it was an LG fridge where, like, you could knock, right? Yep. And you could see through it. That is like a very, very sort of step in, small step towards this type of design. But that is clear here that that's a goal, because you're able to see, not only are you growing food or potentially having your own little mini garden indoors, but you're seeing greens that you have, and it's sort of all right there laid out for you. And at the same time, you're cooking, and what you're going to use to prepare the meal is also nearby. So it's much more compact, but also the functionality and, like, the ability to just really see what is going on in your kitchen at a glance is, I mean, it's so different from anything that you see today in the modern kitchen. So I think it's really smart and interesting that they're like, well, this is our vision. Our products will reflect this in the future. And here's the design that we think will, sort of evolve around that.
It reminded me of something I might see instead from another Swedish company in IKEA, partly because it's furniture. And, the design is also kind of IKEA-ish.
Yeah.
It also is really reminiscent a bit of, I think in 2020 CES, where GE came out with some kind of future-forward concepts around sustainable kitchens, personalizable kitchens that kind of adapt to the current environment or who's in the kitchen. So every now and then you'll get an appliance maker throwing out these concepts. It does seem like Electrolux is serious about shipping this and eventually delivering this. It's unclear at this point when they plan on doing it, but and I would expect that it would probably be in Europe first. I don't necessarily think a kitchen that is saying, "Hey, you should eat a more plant-based, more sustainable diet." That would probably not. America wouldn't be the first place I'd push it. Not to say that, but there's not a lot of people in the U.S. that are trying to eat more plant-forward. But
right.
It does seem like this would be something that would resonate more in Europe, and particularly Northern Europe.
Yes. Well, just the fact that kitchen design, European kitchen design, and actually European home design, and they tend to have much smaller spaces dedicated to a lot of things. We Americans like everything big, and cars tend to be smaller, apartments tend to be smaller. The amount of space that they dedicate for kitchens or bathrooms or whatever tend to have that's just sort of the nature of a lot of European countries and the residences that you find there. In America, it's the total opposite. Like every time you see the next design trend or whatever for kitchens, it's bigger or glossier, it's a completely different. So yeah, in this case, I think this design may appeal to not necessarily the North American market right away, but at the same time we're seeing an uptick of, and we're going to talk about another home grow system in a minute that like we have for many other times, many other home grow systems, but there's more and more of that being adopted. More people want to eat plant-based, and more people are open to changing what, their kitchen could look like, because they're bringing grow systems that are sitting on their countertops, and they're, we've seen cabinets, almost vertical farming cabinets that you can, or pantries that you can put in your house. And so it's coming, but I agree. I think that we'll see more European design, sort of aesthetic first before we really see big adoption here. So
some of the different modules that Grow had, like they had a fermentation chamber, which I thought was interesting. They had a smoker. They had essentially a little closet for your air fryer or your sous vide appliance. So essentially an appliance garage. They had a roots vegetable chamber, and it's pretty modular, so you can kind of mix and match. One of the things I was thinking about how they would actually retail this thing. Would this be this would definitely be something you'd have to demo?
Yeah,
like a kind of a retail establishment that can have these really kind of built out and show you what the different options are, etc. So maybe not your traditional way you're retailing appliances, but definitely would be interesting. So I'm sure that's one of the things they're thinking about.
Yeah.
You kind of tease this next story with their home grow systems. The next, and this is something that I don't know if I'd buy because I'm not a mushroom eater. Mushrooms kind of gross me out, but I do think they're super cool to watch. So I'd almost would consider to having this in my house and on my kitchen countertop just because it would be cool to watch these things grow. It's the Shruly, which is a new home mushroom growing chamber, and it's available during a Kickstarter or Indiegogo campaign right now. It's expected to ship in December. And essentially, it's just a countertop home mushroom appliance. It's one that works with essentially pods. So the company that you buy this thing from, you would subscribe to pods, or you'd buy them one off, and they're $12 a piece. Have all different types of mushrooms, shiitake, whatever types of mushrooms you might like. I don't know all the different varieties. You're more of at least I think Lindsay's more of a mushroom person, your partner, right?
Yeah.
She might want one of these.
Yes. My wife likes mushrooms, but during the pandemic, decided one of the hobbies that she took up. We did start with the bread making, but then we moved on quickly to mushroom hunting, like in the wild. And I was not psyched about that because lots of them, when you're cleaning them, actually have bugs that crawl out of them. So this is a much more appealing way to get fresh mushrooms. But she and her friend got really into looking for chicken of the woods, which is a wild mushroom you can eat, and like all these other. But in general, she likes mushrooms a lot. And this reminded me of, we actually have a countertop grow system for like herbs and small veggies, like although the tomatoes grow really, really small, but which is cool. And you can grow them year round, which is nice. We live in New England, so the climate, you can't really get a lot of fresh stuff in the wintertime. And this design is similar to that, and except instead of it being sort of this just open air, like those are pod based too. You stick like a basil pod into the system, and you put water in the chamber below, and then it just automatically switches the light on and off, gives it water when it needs to, etc. This is a little more intense because mushrooms, I think, indoors require a little more to come to fully grow and be ready for picking. So there's humidity control and all of that. But the concept is the same. You've got this pod and you just sort of stick it in there and you are watching it kind of grow over time. And the cool thing and the difference between trying to grow, other vegetables or things inside is that versus mushrooms, that mushrooms don't take as long to grow and be able to be, which is, I think it actually makes it like more, I bet they'll see consumers and users, obviously they'll be reordering more because it'll be quick for them to, but the longevity of use, I think, will increase significantly because it won't take. One of the things we're definitely guilty of, I'm sure a lot of people are with home grow systems, is like you sort of forget after a while, like the novelty wears off a little bit and then you're like, oh crap, we forgot to pick that, or we forgot that was over there, or we didn't use those or whatever because it was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago or whatever the grow time is. So that factor is really, really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always liked the concept of home grow systems, but the countertop ones, the traditional green ones, are basically growing herbs or some leafy greens. You're generally not growing big tomatoes or root vegetables and so they don't produce a lot of food. You really need like a big footprint system to produce any sort of like substantial amount of food that can actually feed people in your household. You kind of get the sense with this thing that the cycle for a mushroom out of one of these pods, and they seem like they grow pretty big, is like 5 to 10 days.
Yeah. And
I think one pod will grow like 3 or 4 times. So it seems like it's enough to actually have some substantial amount of mushrooms. If you're eating mushrooms, it seems like it's enough to actually grow some substance there.
Yeah.
And so I think that's interesting.
Yeah, and mushrooms you could cut and refrigerate or whatever, depending on the type, and have a lot of mushrooms stored up because they don't go bad super quickly if you take proper care of them or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I think mushroom lovers will rejoice at this. There is definitely snobbery in the mushroom community, I've also found out. So very much like similar to the coffee. Snobs. Yes, there are mushroom snobs. Myco snobs.
Myco snobs.
Yes, snobbery.
Mycophiles. Mycophiles is what I think you call the mushroom enthusiast. And
yes, mycophiles.
This isn't the first smart gadget for mycophiles, though. Like there was the Mela from First Build. If you've been reading this one, you might know about this. So GE's innovation arm and this little microfactory they have, they launched the Mela last year. And what's interesting is I think their Kickstarter or Indiegogo finished, I think, in the fall, but they're not shipping till this November.
Yeah.
If the Shruly folks are on target, they'll just ship a month after the Mela. And so who knows if they got the idea for First Build, because I do think this is the First Build device was the first I saw of this concept. And then around the same time, if I looked at the timeline for Shruly, they said they conceived of this device in October of last year, which is about the time that the First Build one went on their Kickstarter or their Indiegogo campaign. So who knows? Even if it's a copycat, it's. I think we can use more of these. I don't know if this is a trend. We've seen 2 of these in a year, but I'm welcoming this because I think we could use more home grow systems.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great idea, and we'll see if they can ship by the holidays. I'm considering getting this as a Christmas present. I don't really think my wife listens to these podcasts all the way through, so we're safe there. It's fine.
You can always get her the GE one.
It's true. Although the GE one
No.
looks bigger. I think it's bigger footprint wise.
Yeah, this one definitely has a sexier design. Like it's more European looking. I think the guys are out of the UK.
Yes.
Or something. The other one definitely looks like something designed by engineers in the bowels of GE.
yeah, which is sometimes it's hit or miss with Kickstarter and Indiegogo stuff. Sometimes you get really beautiful products where clearly they had a designer on the team or product designer, versus like it's more built for function,
utilitarian versus the GE first build one. The Mela looks a little more utilitarian. It does have a bigger footprint. This one just looks like it'd be better.
Yeah.
It'll look a little nicer in your kitchen. So kind of pick your poison on this one. And I am intrigued by the whole chicken in the woods mushroom. I want to put a pin on that one because what is just like a mushroom that tastes like chicken.
We'll bring that back. The quick answer is yes, that is the case. It supposedly tastes like chicken. I don't think it tasted like chicken, but that is, I think there's a longer story behind where it gets its name, but I think that's kind of the sum of it. Right. But I'm probably gonna order, and then who knows, maybe like after the new year we'll be talking about this, and I'll do some live videos and we can show people.
Might have to do a review.
Yes.
You're buying on the lately. You're buying more kitchen cabinets than I am. Like I kind of had to wean myself off the bad habit because I was getting in trouble.
I have a lot to catch up on. You have like the fact that you're like, this isn't what I'm going to buy. Like Mike is not going to back a food tech product on Indiegogo Kickstarter. Like what's happening to the world?
Well, part of it is a lot of them just didn't ship. I wrote a story, I think, about a month ago about the silo coming back from a kind of a near-death experience. So hopefully some of the ones I backed years ago will eventually ship.
Rejuvenate.
I'm sitting next to my spin coffee maker, which that was
that was a journey.
That was a long journey. So I go in journeys with these companies.
Yes. One thing I'll say, and I don't know how, this is not like this is just my opinion, having seen a lot of these campaigns and actually helped companies with some of them years and years ago. If their funding goal, which has already been raised, is like pretty low, it is like something like, I think they set like a $10,000 goal or something, and that's always done intentionally. Like it's obviously better to go way over, even if it's a small amount, than to not fund, or the optics of that. But it also suggests that they don't need the funding to produce the product. They use it as a marketing campaign more than anything else. Yeah. And they're ready. They've already got everything in place that they need. Obviously, that's not a foolproof analysis. Like, don't go back all the campaigns just based on that. But I think that's, it's a decent sign that they're not waiting for. There's been companies where, unfortunately, if they don't, they get funded, but it took a little longer, or things come back, they need more money, then that, it can extend the time period. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, I mean, GE, like some of the corporates started using a while ago, Indiegogo in particular, as a way to like test novel concepts. Right. And you could pretty much be sure if you buy something from GE through their first build, they're either going to ship it or they're going to refund you your money. Yeah. It's the startups that are really trying to, like, they didn't actually know if they'd succeed. They've never built a product. So if they're going to try and pay for their tooling with like their back Kickstarter money, like there's a chance you may never see it. Yeah. If there's like not really a working prototype, if it's a plan on paper and they do a Kickstarter, like that's a lot riskier than totally. If they actually have like a functioning appliance that's working and they're very close. And I kind of noticed that if the ship date's like 6 months out versus like totally. If it's like a year out or more, then I get a little bit more worried. So that's a whole nother show. We should just like do a show on called "I've Been Burned by Kickstarter" and go.
We could talk a lot about them. We've certainly had both between the two of us had enough experience. So hit us up if you want some advice on how to invest wisely, what not.
And this next product is another. We're doing a lot of kitchen products today, a lot of kitchen tech, which is fun. I think I love talking about this stuff. And this one, I don't know if they're going to actually do a crowdfunding campaign, but the product is called Celsi. And I was told about the product by the founder. I interviewed them, and Celsi is spelled Celcy, is a new take on a countertop cooking appliance. It's not that different than some of the kind of futuristic appliances we've seen over the past couple of years, but it is a little bit different in that it has an incorporated freezer and a cooking side. So it's essentially, think of it like a two-sided appliance. On one side, you essentially have a freezer. You insert up to 4 frozen meals. and the meals are shipped to you. They're a company that's trying to do both the food delivery as well as the cooking appliance. And then once you are ready to eat something, you basically you go onto your app, the Celsi app, say, hey, I want this meal done at 7 when I arrive home from work. It essentially shifts the food from one side to the other, from the freezer side to the cook side. It has a little food lift, another little mini elevator, and lifts it up into like the top right-hand side, and there's basically a cooking chamber. And yeah, I mean, I don't think I've seen an appliance that had a freezer built in. We certainly have seen like the sous vide, for example, that has built-in refrigeration.
Right.
So it will hold food and hold it for a while. And we've seen other, like the Mello, I think going back like 5 or 6 years now, the Mello had like that was a device that went through a journey,
Yes.
a lot of different ownership changes. But like it was a sous vide appliance that actually chilled the food to a certain degree. Got a really bad write-up in Wired because it wasn't chilling it quite enough from our friend Joe Ray. But this new appliance actually is a freezer and then has a cooking side. And so I don't know. What do you think of this? Would you buy this?
Maybe. I think it comes down to a couple of things. And we've obviously, we've seen some companies like Tavala do decently with meal subscriptions where there's pre-packaged stuff that you can insert right in. And the Celsi looks like they're saying you'll be able to do both. There'll be a subscription, but then there'll be some components that you can do from scratch. So it kind of remains to be seen. I think it will honestly I don't know that I would buy one early on. I think doing refrigeration and cooking completely unattended, or freezing and cooking unattended, I think is really difficult. And I think there's a reason that there hasn't been all kinds of, because obviously the concept, right, goes back to like the crock pot and all of the days when people would put stuff in their crock pot and turn it on and leave the house, or scheduled to turn on a little bit after they leave the house, because you can't obviously leave meat sitting on the counter for hours and hours before you start to cook it. So there's always been that that idea has been out there for a long time. Like, how do you solve that problem of like, you either have to put it on and leave the house and be able to come home in time to not, have it be cooking for too long, or you can't leave it there and have only a couple of hours after you leave for work. So anyway, that problem has been trying to be solved. I think that it's Mello, obviously, like you said, got a bad write-up in Wired and had some rough reviews online in general because the refrigeration piece was a little wonky, and maybe they'll nail it. Maybe it'll be a really seamless experience. It'll keep things truly frozen and not thought out to the point where the cooking experience is then ruined because if you think about it, if something is frozen and then going right to a cooking experience, like that's a very specific, like you have to make sure that the type of foods you're doing that with don't need to be slightly thawed, or maybe they do, but that is a whole other process in and of itself to slightly thaw something before you stick it in an oven, or so the quality and with like how different types of meats and things would turn out, I think for me is just a question mark. Like it's not, I don't think it's not doable. I'm sure that they're the company is thinking about all of these different things and factoring that in to try to deliver a really great experience. But like you were saying, there's been attempts at, similar, although not frozen, but similar ideas. And I think, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, frozen food just generally has really had, it's kind of is having its moment in a way. Like the pandemic fed that to a certain degree, but we were seeing more and more frozen food doing really well. I think millennials and younger folks have discovered, hey, like you can actually get really good food frozen. I think it was a little bit tied to air fryers as you got, you saw like the rise of air fryers, and like there's some really great, you could put frozen chicken nuggets in an air fryer and make it taste really good. Yeah. So there's that is maybe kind of an underlying thing that could feed momentum for this. Mm-hmm. It really is resting on the entire idea of this Celsi is really resting and banking on, hey, there's a group of people out there who are busy enough to where they want to be able to come home, they're hungry, and they want food cooked quickly. So we're going to build automation into this appliance that could take frozen food and cook it when they're ready. And because like it's not that hard for someone to like take something out of the freezer and pop it into their oven, right? Like, so this is saying people want to skip that step, and they're willing to pay for a dedicated appliance to do that. Yep. Whether or not that is the case, I think is yet to be seen, and I think the entire company's success depends on that being true.
Right.
But it is, it's an interesting new take, one I haven't seen before, to a certain degree. But like whether or not they'll actually be successful, I think is yet to be seen. Yeah,
and the other thing here is that look, like there's been a lot of innovation in appliances in smaller appliances, or taking large appliance functions and making them small. And the countertop, I think, has like everything's been countertop based, and so the countertop real estate I think is shrinking in homes. If you're someone like, if the last two products we've talked about require countertop space, in addition to like on my countertop we have our blender, we have our coffee pot, we have our little grow with the herbs or whatever sitting next to the coffee pot. So like, and we don't have a giant kitchen, so there's already a lot of stuff. And I also have a composter that is now taking up some real estate that we've been using, which I definitely need to write a follow-up post about. But point is that like at the end of the day, going back to the Electrolux piece, like you can see how kitchen design, like everything that's being designed right now is sort of just like, well, stick it on your countertop because that's where most people are going to have space for it, and they're not going to redesign their kitchen around a $600 little oven or whatever. But at the same time, like, how many more countertop things are we going to be, is that can't be, the kitchen of the future is not just going to be existing kitchens with our countertops filled with machines. Like that can't be the kitchen of the future. It just can't. So.
Well, I mean, it kind of gets me back to why that grow is so interesting, right? I mean, I would encourage folks listening to the podcast, maybe just Google Electrolux grow, GRO. You might come to our article or you'll see a video of it. But like you said, like we can't just expect our countertops to get more cluttered with every new appliance that comes. And that's part of the reason, like, I've kind of had to wean myself off my kitchen gadget addiction, because you just start to run out of room after a while, and stuff gets shoved in drawers.
Right.
But if you had like this grow system, which is a modular system, and it has like against the wall, you're building up kind of these different modules rather than on your countertop. So it's kind of built in. That might be like the future. At least it's a vision of the future.
Yeah, I mean, and if you want it to be able to have refrigeration or freezing before cooking in an unattended or automated way, you either have to build a separate machine, or you have to figure out a way, or build a separate machine, but figure out a way to have your oven and your stove in close proximity to where you're doing your refrigeration and cooling and freezing, which in today's kitchens is just not even. Short of having a Rosie robot in your some man robot coming over and putting stuff back and forth, that doesn't exist right now, just from a logistics standpoint. So you have to have a separate device, but I think it just demands kind of reimagining the whole design and look and feel of appliances and the kitchen in general. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm interested to see how this plays out for sure. I'm sure we'll see. I'm sure Joe will give it a very thorough review if and when it ships, and as will we probably. But I think the convenience piece and the ability to like have meals. Everybody's life is faster and faster and faster. And like, I know even though I'm home more and my kids are home more since the pandemic, it still would be so nice to have easier ways to prepare and do meals. So I think the demand for these solutions is absolutely there. And, people want to be able to eat healthier at home and all of those things. So I think it's kind of on the appliance industry and the kitchen design community to help us come up with solutions that don't just result in our countertops being overburdened. But TBD.
All right. TBD. And so TBD till next week. We had a pretty kitchen-centric show this week, which is good. We haven't talked about kitchen gadgets as much as we should be doing, because it's just one of my fascinations. And so I'm hoping to see whether or not you buy the mushroom growing chamber. That'll be the thing we'll come back to.
I will update you guys on. Yes, I will.
And but other than that, thanks for joining me, Ashley.
Yeah, no problem. Talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.